What's up everybody, this is the 2024 Lexus TX 350. So about the TX, well, it's this all new model here and it's finally a three-row crossover that's actually large for Lexus here. And this is something Lexus buyers have been wanting for a long time. This has a nice big third row, good amount of cargo space, a nice big vehicle without being a body on frame truck kind of thing like past large SUVs from Lexus. And so this is on the GAK platform, a platform it shares not only with the Lexus RX, but also with the Toyota Grand Highlander, which this vehicle does share a lot with, but there are some big changes as well for this. So anyway, as far as the dimensional changes, just to put it in perspective, it's almost 9 inches longer than the brand new RX, and so about 3 inches wider as well. And even compared to the Grand Highlander, this is actually almost 2 inches longer than that as well, thanks to the unique styling, of course. As far as the styling up front there, you have a very bold grille, and you have those nice Lexus headlights there, which always have a very sharp little scoop kind of DRL there in them, and it looks really cool, and nice little fog lights there in the lower part of the front bumper. Coming down to the sides here, this one is just a premium trim, and so it's kind of a mid-grade trim here for the base 350 version, and it gives you some nice 20-inch wheels though still. Now you can go up to like 22s in the TX 500 and some of the sportier ones, but these 20s look really great. And I also love the C-pillar treatment, which is definitely different from the Grand Highlander, where this kind of has a little black panel there to make it seem like it's a floating roof line, which doesn't stand out too much here in these darker colors, but certainly will stand out more on the lighter colors. And then going out to the back there, I really like the full width tail lamps there and how they even have a little bit of extra dimension where they kind of bump out around the corners there. And otherwise, it's just a nice and classy looking back end and really clean with the design. And so overall, I think that the new TX here is just really nicely styled, a little bolder than the Grand Highlander. I just think that they did a really great job here on the styling for it. And let's start it up and go for a drive. So the TX here has the same usual Lexus key, a very nice key though nonetheless, just a few buttons there on the back of it, and yeah, I really like it. But of course it is keyless access, keyless entry, and push button start. So you just leave the key in your pocket, hit the engine start button, and it starts right up. And if you're curious to hear about the interior in the TX, my wife and I just did a full in-depth interior review on this vehicle, so I'll link that at the end of this video. You can go watch that if you want to hear all our thoughts and all the details on this interior. Overall, though, it is best-in-class interior space, very plush in typical Lexus fashion, but I mean, just so much space that you're not going to be wanting or expecting any more space than what this offers, unless you're going to go up to a full body-on-frame, huge truck-based SUV, which are, way more expensive as well. And so, as far as this interior, it is still very, very nice, but definitely be sure to check out that interior video at the end of this one. All right, so setting off here in the TX 350. So the first thing that you notice about this vehicle, I think the first thing I'm noticing is you have great visibility. It is really, really well done. Nice, large windshield, nice thin A-pillars, mirrors off onto the doors, and view out of the back is also pretty good. If you have the headrests up for that third row there, it'll block your view a little bit, but that's why this one has the camera rear view mirror, and that is a very nice feature to get. I strongly recommend getting that, especially if you're going to be using that third row a good bit and having those headrests up. I mean, that's just great because it gives you an unobstructed view all the time. As far as other views, thanks to cameras, you also have 360 cameras here. This premium trim has it, and that also gives you an option to enable a smart park assist system if you want to have the car park itself. It can do that, but the 360 camera is going to give you a bird's eye view of everything around you, really help with maneuvering in tight spots, and very easy to drive as a result, even though this is a very large vehicle. But if you want the maximum maneuverability, if you go up to the TX 500 version, you will get rear wheel steering, and that will help shrink the turning radius and help it to be a little more maneuverable. But here in the 350, there isn't any option for that rear wheel steer, unfortunately, but it's just a really nice thing to drive too. We're just cruising on a park road here slowly so far, but nice and smooth and quiet. They added more sound deadening compared to the Grand Highlander, and even in my first few miles, I do pick up on that. I can appreciate that. It's not wildly different, but it is certainly appropriate for a Lexus. It's just that the Grand Highlander was already pretty good, but this is even a little bit of extra polish. I even noticed getting into this vehicle, the doors are a little heavier. It takes a little more muscle to close these doors compared to the Grand Highlander, so there is definitely some tangible refinement improvements in this compared to the Grand Highlander that certainly justifies the badging here and the more expensive price here of the TX. Other things to note about it though, nice and responsive throttle here. You have a turbocharged engine which gives you nice punch down low, and it's hooked up to a regular 8-speed automatic, nice and simple and straightforward. Other things here, brakes are they're okay. They're a little wooden, if I'm honest. I wish they were a little bit more grabby, and I wish there was a little more feeling out of the brakes here, but it's a nitpicky thing. They're totally fine, to be honest, but they are the same brakes as the Grand Highlander, which makes sense because in some of the Grand Highlanders, I felt that they were also a little wooden in that as well. Not a big deal. It's fine. It's just, you're going to have to just adjust your braking depending on what you're coming out of, but it's totally fine. Very easy to get used to. Steering also has some slight changes compared to the Grand Highlander, and I'd say that it feels a little weightier. It certainly is a little bit heavier for the steering compared to the Grand Highlander, which is pretty light, honestly, very light. But this is a little bit more heft, but not too bad at all, and not overboard like some of the Mazdas that are super heavy and stuff. This is a nice kind of Goldilocks feel. But I'm going to go ahead and put it up into the sport driving mode here, and let's turn down onto this back road here and see how it does. And here we go. A little bit of a delay. There we go. Then it got the hint. And then it pulls very nicely. And so, yeah, it's a good amount of power here. So it runs the same motor as the Grand Highlander, the 2.4 liter turbocharged 4-cylinder engine. It's both direct and port injection for that reliability there. So you have, no issues as far as some of the old direct injected stuff from other automakers. No issues here. It has that efficiency, but still has that port injection. And so it should be a very reliable motor as a result. Now here in the TX here, we're going to have 275 horsepower and 317 pound-feet of torque, which is 10 more horsepower than the Grand Highlander and 7 more pound-feet of torque. And that mostly comes down to slight tuning changes, and mostly just the fact that this recommends premium fuel. The Grand Highlander's ratings are on regular fuel. Now, the Grand Highlander could probably, make the same kind of horsepower if you put premium in it. And, I would assume the opposite would be true, that if you were to just put regular in here, you'd probably have the same power as the Grand Highlander. Although I'm not sure, it just recommends premium, so I'd stick with the premium, but I'm guessing you could probably run regular and be okay. Check with your owner's manual. But, so it's a good amount of punch. I think Car and Driver with a front-wheel drive version, which is available, this one we're driving here is all-wheel drive. With a front-wheel drive version they tested, they got a 7.1 seconds 0 to 60 here for these. And straight line performance isn't going to be the primary focus. Obviously, these are just supposed to be family vehicles, just kid haulers, things like that. But if you do want more power, Lexus has you covered with 2 different options. There's also the TX 500, and that's going to be giving you a hybrid system with this 2.4 liter combined with 2 electric motors. Gives you like 366 horsepower, 406 pound-feet of torque. That's like a 5.5 seconds 0 to 60. That's going to be, a lot more exciting again, having the F Sport branding on that one. There'll be definitely the sportier one. And then there's also a TX 550, which is a plug-in hybrid, a little bit heavier, so not as dynamic for the handling in that one. But that's going to give you a regular naturally aspirated, the old Lexus 3.5 liter V6 combined with electric motors, and that's going to give you even more horsepower. I think that's like 400 some horsepower. But anyway, kind of up some corners here we always take. Let's see how the TX handles. So nice and flat handling. We've unfortunately caught up to a slow-moving vehicle here, but handling is really nice and well controlled. Going around that corner there was no issue whatsoever. And a couple more tight corners here, and checking it in. Actually, it's really nice. It actually felt more neutral than I was expecting. They're going around the corner. There isn't any kind of fancy stuff with this all-wheel drive system. It's just a regular, all-wheel drive system for traction. Again, Lexus is assuming you're going to go up to the 500 or the 550 if you want to have, sportier handling. And so, like I said, rear-wheel steering, the 500, and on top of that, in addition to the rear-wheel steering, you also have adaptive dampers in that 500 version. You don't get that here in this, but the adaptive dampers aren't really set up to give you a smoother ride in the 500. I don't think. It's mostly about just making it sportier and making it firmer. You have bigger wheels in that, so that's going to be definitely the one if you want to have a sporty handling TX for whatever reason. But as far as this one goes, it still handles really well and really is nice and tight. I actually am really appreciating the slightly heavier steering in this compared to the Grand Highlander. It certainly gives you a sportier vibe just by nature with that as well, and just feels very nice and planted and secure, and overall just it's going to feel really nice even if you're in a hurry going down a back road, but especially for the usual daily driving kind of stuff. Just going to keep up with everything you want it to do. Nice and flat handling, and just feels great. And especially if you're someone who's coming out of one of the Lexus 3-row things like a GX or something like that, I mean, this is going to be just so much better with the handling being on a crossover platform versus truck-based kind of platform. And so yeah, this just, it handles really, really well. I can only imagine how much better you'll probably get with the handling for the 500 version, but very happy. I don't think anyone's going to complain about the handling here in this. Another thing you actually will probably appreciate in daily driving is this turbocharged 4-cylinder engine. You know, a lot of the competitors, most of the main competitors actually still run V6 engines, you know, with the MDX, the QX60, you know, the Cadillac XT6, all of those run an old V6 still. And having a turbo motor is really nice because it gives you that extra punch down low, so you don't have to rev out the motor and put your foot to the floor to get decent acceleration out of them like those others, you know, really make you go to those high RPMs to make its peak power. This, you're making, you know, peak punch in those much lower RPMs there. And it really just helps you to have a more relaxed driving experience and have, you know, more power sooner and not be waiting around for that power in those higher RPMs. So I really like that. And I mean, it's something that's actually, you know, a luxury feature, I think, in my mind, because when you look at, you know, what the premium, like really top expensive 3-row crossovers like the Mercedes GLS, the BMW X7, Audi Q7, those all have turbocharged engines as well, although those are turbo 6s in those. But you know, it's a premium thing to have that turbo boost down low, and those again are going to be, you know, $80,000, $90,000, $100,000, you know, way more expensive than, you know, this vehicle's as tested price of $63,000, but yet you get that nice turbo punch down low just like those. And now we're out on the highway here in the TX, and it's a really nice highway cruiser as well. We have a gentle corner here, and we have the adaptive cruise control system on currently with the lane trace assist, and this is some very challenging circumstances. It's direct sun right on the road here, and it's still doing a really good job with the steering, even with this tar strip going down the middle and everything. It's giving me confident steering assist. The lane trace assist system in both Toyotas and Lexus products are always really good. I've always had, you know, pretty good luck with them, been pretty impressed with them in this newest generation at least. And for this, it's just doing a really good job. And the great thing is that with the Lexus Safety System Plus 3.0, it's the newest version, that gives you basically everything as standard. You have automatic emergency braking, which also does have an emergency steer assist thing to try and swerve out of the way if you know, it sees that you're not doing that and it thinks that that can help save you, you know, that it'll do that. It also has, like I said, lane trace assist, lane departure alert, you know, all those basic things. But adaptive cruise control is standard, which is really great. Some other companies, even some of the higher end companies, will still make you pay extra for that kind of stuff. And so it's great that you have that here as standard. And you know, so they have basically everything covered. The only optional add-ons are this traffic jam assist, which is basically just giving you hands-free assistance at speeds under 25 miles per hour. And that's why you have this sensor on the steering column to make sure your eyes are actually looking at the road still. But that will give you, you know, some hands-free stuff, but it's only again up to about 25 or so. So it's not going to be quite as advanced as, you know, some of the other competitors, with Cadillac and Lincoln both offering, you know, their truly hands-free systems in their models that are a little more expensive, to be fair, but, you know, those will be offering that, which, you know, you don't have here in this. But aside from that, I mean, still, it does everything else for you here, as long as you don't mind keeping your hands on the wheel. You know, it's going to give you really nice assistance. And I also really love with this nice big head-up display, you have great information right there in your field of view of, you know, what it's picking up and how it's assisting you with the steering and all of that, and it'll let you know if it loses track of the road lines, things like that. It's all very handy. And so, I mean, but, you know, also at, you know, some lower highway speeds here, but at highway speeds here, nice and quiet. You know, you don't really hear much. Cars are passing by, and, you know, you hardly hear anything. Then you turn on this awesome Mark Levinson, you know, 21 speaker stereo, and then you really won't hear anything outside. So it's you know, just gonna be this nice cocoon, just cruising comfort on the highway. And yeah, this will be a great highway cruiser. But anyway, that's all of my thoughts here on the TX so far. But thanks to Lexus, I will have this vehicle for an entire week. So I'm gonna drive around all over the place, then I'll come back and give you guys my final real world fuel economy, as well as my thoughts on the pricing, how it compares to the competition, and anything else that I noticed here during my week of driving. Alright, so I've been driving the TX 350 for a week now, and I've really enjoyed my time with it. Honestly, there hasn't been any big revelations, aside from the fact that it's just a really nice thing to live your life with. It's, you know, got plenty of space, plenty of comfort, and plenty of power as well. You know, this just being the base motor, still totally fine. I don't think anyone's going to honestly want for more power in this segment. It's awesome that Lexus offers punchier options for those that do want more, but I think this is totally fine, and this motor has just been so eager. The transmission is tuned very well to maximize the engine and give you the response you're looking for. I still don't love how reliant they are on the head-up display here with Lexus, where, like, just to turn on cruise control, you have to look at the head-up display. You can't, it doesn't show you anything in the gauge cluster. It's all on the head-up display as far as these button controls for, you know, the steering wheel controls. It's all, you know, going through the head-up display. I don't love that. If I were getting one of these, you know, I'd love to see a way to get one without a head-up display, but still get you know, all the other bells and whistles, because all the other stuff is really nice to have. But if you go for a lower trim, you can spare yourself that as well here, not getting the head-up display. And also the safety alerts have been less annoying. I don't know if they've made some changes to the tuning or if there's a little bit of a different setup, but my RXs that I've had a couple of weeks in RXs for this new generation, and it was always giving me alerts for the forward collision warning thing. And in this vehicle, even though it was telling me there were cars going past and I saw the visual notification on the head-up display, there wasn't the annoying beeping and it wasn't quite as intrusive. I'm not sure, again, if that's just a setup thing or what, but I was just less annoyed with the tech here in this than I was in the RX. And honestly, it didn't annoy me at all here in my week with the TX. And so I was really happy with that. But before I get into the fuel economy and the pricing and all that, I first want to mention too, one other thing about the safety. So that is one thing, you know, as far as the safety tech goes, it's fantastic. It's very well done, has everything you could want and more. But as far as the crash performance, unfortunately, whenever the IHS just tested the Toyota Grand Highlander, which this shares a platform with and therefore unfortunately shares a crash test rating with, it didn't get the top IHS Top Safety Pick Plus award. Now, it still was good in all metrics aside from the small overlap. It got acceptable instead of good, and so that's why it missed out on that Top Safety Pick Plus award. And I mean, it's still a very safe car, of course, still, you know, gets top marks, and even an acceptable rating in 2024 with these is a very safe vehicle, you know, even from something a few years ago. So I mean, you know, it's no knock against the safety. It's just that whenever you are cross-shopping these, if you do want a vehicle that has that current, you know, 2024 model year IHS Top Safety Pick Plus award, this doesn't have that, and basically most of the other competitors do. There are a few now with this newest test that are starting to drop off of that list. The Cadillac XT6, for example, gets a poor rating in some of those metrics, and there's a couple others that, you know, don't do quite as well. But it's just worth noting that, you know, this isn't unfortunately in the top ranks of Top Safety Pick Plus awards, and just one thing I want to put out there for those that are safety minded. But the last thing to mention though is the pricing and how it compares to the competition, and also the fuel economy. So briefly, fuel economy, you know, no one really cares too much in stuff like this, but these are rated at 20 mpg in the city, 26 on the highway, and 23 combined. I've been averaging 18.2 mpg here, and this is the winter time now, so, you know, a little bit of a longer warm up and all that. And you know, I usually get 1 to 2 mpg less than the city rating, and it seems like all these, you know, mid-sized three-row crossovers, regardless of what's powering them, I always end up getting about 18 mpg, it seems, and this falls right in line with that. So totally is par for the course. And, you know, again, I don't think anyone's going to complain. If you do want better fuel economy, you can go for the TX 500. That one's going to have the hybrid system, which will get you up into the upper 20s. And of course, the plug-in hybrid coming here in 2024 will give you even better efficiency for those who do want that. It's great they offer those options, since most of the competitors do not have hybrids or plug-in hybrid options. That will really be the key differentiator. But here for the 350, you know, it's going to be the same as what you're going to get with most of the other competitors as far as fuel economy goes, and that's totally fine. You know, for something this big, this luxurious, you know, be getting 18 mpg, you know, I think is totally fine. But then pricing and how it compares to the competition. Now, these start right around $55,000, including destination. This one, as tested, is $63,405. And honestly, at $63.5, basically, I'm impressed at how much car you get for your money. We're talking about a Lexus as well. And with, you know, prices just ballooning these days for everything, the fact that this is only $63 for a big luxury three-row crossover that has more space than even all the German competitors, that, you know, has all the tech you could want, all the features you could want, some features that some of the others don't even offer, like the camera rearview mirror, one of the biggest screens in the segment here. I mean, there is some real impressive stuff here, and the fact that it's doing it, you know, not only so much cheaper than the German competitors, which I'll get to more in a second, but, you know, the fact that it's just only 63 when, I mean, you can get a nice RX, you know, up over 63. So, I mean, I think this is a really solid value, and is, you know, kind of tough to beat, again, especially if you want the most spacious thing possible. This has the biggest third row. It has, you know, the most cargo space you're going to be getting in this segment. And so, you know, unless you want to go up to a full-size truck-based SUV from one of the American brands, you know, this is going to really be pretty much unbeatable from a space standpoint, and therefore a value standpoint, just because of, you know, they price these very, very well here for these regular 350 versions. Now, you can get some really expensive TXs in the 70s, and I think even up into the 80s with those, you know, more expensive ones coming. But, you know, I think that this is really a solid buy at, you know, $63,500. And when you compare it to the competition, you know, that also shows that that is really a strong value. Potentially one of the top competitors is the Acura MDX, which is actually $1,500 more expensive for a comparable trim, which is their top advanced trim. It matches this on all the features that this one has a 63. That's gonna be $1,500 more. You're at like 65 for one of those, and that has a V6, which some people might think is a pro, some people might think is a con. It does have better handling, I will give it that. The MDX is definitely the sportiest of the bunch, I think, as far as handling goes. But aside from that one advantage, I mean, that has, you know, a still controller pad. It doesn't even have a touchscreen, which is infuriating for a lot of people. Some people love the controller pads and stuff, but most people don't love Acura's system. And so I think that, you know, having a simple touchscreen here, a huge screen that's also bigger, by the way, than the Acura's, and again, having the punch of a turbo motor, which you don't get in the MDX, which still is a rever. You got to rev that thing out to, you know, go anywhere. You know, it's just really nice that you have, you know, there's some key advantages here for less money than the MDX. But this isn't the cheapest in the segment by any means. There's also the Infiniti QX60, which does come in about $1,400 less expensive. And, you know, that does also have a touchscreen and has some nice features to it for sure. But that also uses an older V6. I haven't reviewed a QX60, but, you know, it's just not quite as large as this. Once again, this is still going to have everyone beat on the size, and the fact that you, again, get that turbo 4-cylinder, which I really view as an advantage over the V6 powered competitors. Again, some people might fall differently on that, but, you know, Infiniti potentially could undercut this a little bit if you don't need the most space possible. And then the last one I'll mention is the Cadillac XT6, which I did, you know, review a few years back. That also has a V6 and also is a little bit smaller. It's actually one of the smallest of the bunch, I think, these days. Has one of the smallest touchscreens. I think it's still making do with an 8-inch touchscreen for now, and you know, just isn't quite as impressive. It also, like I said, recently has gotten you know, some not so great crash you know, ratings and all that. So I think, you know, it's about $800 cheaper, and now they're offering incentives. I'm not going to factor in incentives because that is going to, you know, vary depending on each dealership, where you're at, you know, how good you're good at negotiating, all that kind of stuff. So I can't really compare incentives and stuff. Potentially there's discounts on many of these vehicles to be had as well, and the TX is brand new and hot. So, you know, your realistic deal might end up being different from a value proposition than, you know, just the MSRP comparisons here, but that's the only fair way for me to do this. But it's just worth noting that, you know, that on paper, from a sticker standpoint, XT6 isn't really, you know, much of a value, and I think you lose out on a lot of stuff compared to this. So, I mean, you know, the only other last thing I will mention here is, you know, the German competitors are way more expensive, so I don't really view those as a competitor to this. They have more punchy engines as well, so those are more competitors to the TX 500, and I'll talk more about that comparison whenever I hopefully get a TX 500 to cover here and review on the channel. But the one final competitor I do have to mention is Toyota's own Grand Highlander. So, you know, yes, this is a fantastic value in the luxury segment, but it is still, you know, it's the same space as a Grand Highlander, and the Grand Highlander matches it on most of the features. You get the camera rearview mirror in the top Grand Highlanders, you get the heated and cooled seats, you get a slightly smaller screen. It's a 12-inch screen versus the 14-inch screen. Obviously, the Lexus has unique interior design, has, you know, some nicer materials, nicer leather here. You know, everything is certainly more premium. Like I said, it's quieter riding. You know, the doors feel more solid. All these little things do add up to a, you know, very worthwhile experience. And if you're someone who wants a luxurious experience, you know, this is certainly definitely the way to go if you have the extra money to spend. But it is depending on how you you know, which trim you're going for and exactly what you want from each trim and stuff. These are going to be roughly a $5,000 to $8,000 premium over a Grand Highlander. If you just want a spacious, you know, 3-row crossover that has heated and cooled seats, that has, you know, all the good other same stuff that you're expecting. You can even get cooled second row seats in the Grand Highlander as well. And so if you're just looking for, you know, checking boxes and getting everything, you know, for the same money, it's the same powertrain and all that, you know, I think that the Grand Highlander is still the ultimate value, but not really fair since that's not a luxury competitor. But, you know, it's just hard not to cross shop since they offer most of the same feature content, just in a nicer packaging here with the Lexus. But, you know, if you don't need the extra refinement of the Lexus, you don't need its styling, its higher status, you know, I think the Grand Highlander will still be a great thing, you know, for even luxury car buyers to be really impressed with just how nice it is inside of those. And I think that, you know, that could also be a worthy competitor and a worthy thing to cross shop here if you're not needing a luxury badge. But otherwise, yeah, I really like the TX. Like I said, I think it's one of the best values in the luxury segment. I just really am impressed with it. I'm so glad that it's, you know, keeps all the same greatness of the Grand Highlander, but just improves it, just makes it nicer, and is just overall, I think, my favorite three-row crossover in the luxury segment at its price point. It's just going to be the one that I'm going to be recommending to people, you know, going forward, because it's just, it does it all for a really good price. So anyway, that's all of my thoughts here on the Lexus TX. Let me know your thoughts on it in the comments below. Huge thanks to Lexus for providing me here with this TX to review for you guys today. Yeah, thank you all very much for watching, and I'll see you on the next one. Take care.